The LA Kings are on a roll as they return home and keep winning. It was a big night for goalie Pheonix Copley. I'll tell you why and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we're on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. At last check, we were at 2,441 subscribers as we are getting close to that 2,500 mark. That will be awesome. And tell a friend about the show. If you're watching it on YouTube, tell your friends to check that out. We love the podcast listeners as well. But the YouTube subscribers, those numbers, they help us to get recognized. They help more people to see the show in their feed and things like that. So it really helps out the show to gain some popularity. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the last 17 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. This episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL and get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Hope you had a great weekend. The LA Kings continue to win a 4-0 shutout victory over the Montreal Canadiens on Saturday afternoon. Quick recap if you missed the game. LA scoring the all-important first goal of this game thanks to a Carl Grundstrom blast, his 7th of the year to make it 1-0. Trevor Moore would add his 10th of the season in the second period to make it 2-0. In the third, Trevor Lewis would score his 3rd of the season, and then Trevor Moore would close it out with his 2nd goal of the game and 11th of the season. All those goals at even strength. Pheonix Copley gets his first shutout of the season, having to make only 18 saves in net thanks to his solid defense in front of him. And the Kings skate off again with a 4-0 victory. LA now 13-3-3 on the season. We'll tell you where that puts them in the Pacific Division and in the NHL standings overall coming up in just a bit. Kings are now 11-0-1 when scoring the first goal of the game, at least by my count. I did see something about 10-0-1. I'll have to go back and recheck my work. But either way, whether it's 11-0-1 or 10-0-1, obviously the first goal has been very important for the LA Kings this season. And they haven't just gotten off to a 1-0 lead. Their last 10 games, the Kings have had at least a 2-0 lead before allowing the first goal. Last 4 games, they've had at least a 3-0 lead. So needless to say, your LA Kings are amongst the best teams right now in the NHL. They're getting it done on both ends of the ice. They're scoring goals. They're preventing goals. Right now, the Kings are playing some very good hockey. But to keep it with the latest game, the game against Montreal, let's get to the game stats on this one real quick. The Kings obviously winning 4-0, 30 shots on goal to 18 for Montreal. As far as the power plays, neither team able to get a goal with the man advantage. Montreal went 0 for 3, so the PK back on track for the Kings. LA did go 0 for 2 with the man advantage. Faceoffs won did favor Montreal 30-20. Block shots favored Montreal 17-15, and hits favored Montreal 23-15. But what do they say? Stats are for losers. There's only one stat that matters, and that is 4-0 Los Angeles Kings. The Kings were in control of this game throughout. If you didn't see it, they were clearly the better team. And I really thought, if you watched our show on Friday when we talked about this game, I was a little bit fearful of this game. I thought it might be a trap game for the LA Kings, coming off an emotional road win in Anaheim the afternoon before. They come back and have to play another day game. And, against a team that is just okay on the year. Montreal maybe playing a little bit better than some people thought, but they're still one of the lesser teams right now in the Eastern Conference. But I thought the Kings maybe could be a little bit flat, but they weren't. And that's a really great sign. And I'll try not to overuse this. Maybe I already have, but I've said this before. I stole this from my favorite coach, Mike Tomlin of my Pittsburgh Steelers. The standard is the standard. In other words, it doesn't matter who you're playing. your standard and level of play should be the same regardless. It shouldn't be, oh, we got to get up for this team, or let's avoid not having a letdown for this team. No, play your game every game, and hopefully that'll be enough to have success. And in the case of the LA Kings, it certainly has been. There were a few games this season where I thought the Kings did kind of play up and down to the level of the competition a little bit. But overall, I thought this game was very well played from top to bottom by the Kings, offensively, obviously, defensively as well, getting the shutout in net. Pheonix Copley didn't have to work a lot. We'll talk more about his night in a minute, but certainly a shutout there in net. So, again, Kings were in control. There were some of the stats that didn't go their way, but like I said, if you watch the game, the Kings were clearly the better team. And I thought it was a good sign for the Kings to, again, not play up or down to their competition, play their game. And in the end, that's going to get you a lot of results. And for Montreal, this was a team that, like I said, isn't that great this year. But again, the Kings playing well on both ends of the ice. And I thought maybe my favorite thing about this game was how the Kings played in the third period. And I'll get into that more a little bit later when we talk about what we did and did not like from this game. There were a few game notes I did want to mention. Blake Lizotte did not play in this game against Montreal. He missed his third straight game due to that undisclosed injury, but they didn't miss him. And the fourth line continues to contribute regardless of who's on it. We'll talk more about that and what we did and didn't like coming up. The Kings had the same lineup for the game against Montreal as they did in the previous game in Anaheim. Carl Grundstrom playing on the quote-unquote third line, the Pierre-Luc Dubois line. Arthur Kaliev playing on the fourth line. That was centered by Trevor Lewis again in this game with Blake Lizotte out and Jarrett Anderson-Dolan moving from center over to wing on that fourth line. So the lineup the same for the last two games now. We'll see how that is going forward. I would assume because the Kings have played well in those last two games, that will continue to be the same going forward. And I did want to mention Anze Kopitar, a rare game where he did not have a point. That included not getting an assist. So the captain is still tied with Marcel Dion for the most points in franchise history. Did want to get to the 3 stars of the game for the win over Montreal. My number 3 star is Pierre-Luc Dubois, who had 2 assists. He had the primary assist on the first goal of the game and the secondary assist on the second goal of the game. All in all, I thought a solid game for a guy who has been getting some heat from some Kings fans, and I don't disagree that he could be giving us a bit more. And I'd like to see him play a little bit better, all things considered. But also consider this. Pierre-Luc Dubois has 5 goals and 6 assists for 13 points on the team right now. And that is what we are complaining about. In other words, life is good right now for LA Kings fans when you're complaining that a player has 13 points, only 13 points on the season. I do get it. But again, I think we need to keep that in perspective as well. I thought Pierre-Luc Dubois had a very solid game against the Montreal Canadiens, so good to see that. The number 2 star for me was Trevor Moore, 2 goals, recording his team-leading 3rd multi-goal game of the season, which included his 50th and 51st career goals, all with the Kings. Those 51 goals, by the way, kind of a neat note, most by a California-born player with a California-based team. Yes, that's very specific, but still very cool. Of course, Thousand Oaks, California for Trevor Moore. His 11 goals this year, more than he had all of last year. Now, it was an injury-plagued bit of a season for him, but consider this. Trevor Moore had 10 goals in 59 games last season. He's got 11 goals in 19 games this season. That's one more than Anze Kopitar for the team lead. And both his goals against Montreal, I'll be honest, they were a little soft, just kind of some flip-ins around the net. But guess what? They all count. And when you're having a good season, good things like that happen. So great to see Trevor Moore having a fine season so far. And I got to go with my number 1 star, Pheonix Copley. Now, again, he only had to face 18 shots. But considering what he's gone through this season and how he's played to start the year, and we're going to get more on this coming up a little bit, it's still a very welcome sight to see. He seems to be locked in like we saw most of last season. Again, wasn't busy, didn't have to make any outstanding saves necessarily. But again, a shutout is a shutout. And that was his second of his career with the Kings, his first this season. And again, we'll get more detailed on Pheonix Copley coming up in just a little bit. Also coming up, we're going to talk about what we did like overall about this game and maybe something we didn't like. And again, get more detailed into the night for goaltender Pheonix Copley. That coming up on this edition of Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. If you run a small solo business, you are an army of one, but you still need a CPA, bookkeeper, separate payroll solution, and more. Let Collective take care of the paperwork while you take care of business. Collective is the number one financial solution for freelancers, contractors, and self-employed entrepreneurs, and lets you focus on your passion, not your paperwork. Collective can handle corporate formation and compliance, taxes, bookkeeping, accounting, and even payroll. The best part is at a fraction of the cost of a CPA. A collective knows that if you're a business of one, makes over $80,000 a year, then you'll find the most value from their services. Join the thousands of solopreneurs who have served an average of $10,000 per year on taxes with their structure. Right now, Collective is offering a 1 month free and no obligation fee when you go to collective.com/LockedOnNHL. Tell them Locked On NHL sent you. Again, that's a $550 value for free when you go to collective.com/LockedOnNHL. Tell them Locked On NHL sent you. Again, collective.com/LockedOnNHL, and tell them Locked On NHL sent you. The LA Kings face the Washington Capitals Wednesday night, 7:30 Pacific time. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of your LA Kings on Sirius XM on the SXM app. Just search LA Kings. What did we like about that win over the Montreal Canadiens? Well, the obvious, a win. Good start, getting that first goal of the game, and finishing off the shutout. How about the defense to start the game as well? Montreal had one shot on goal in the first period. One. LA obviously did a very good job getting bodies in front of shots, also sticks into passing lanes. But I think my favorite part of the game was something I touched on very briefly earlier, and that was the third period of this game. The Kings did not sit on the lead, as we've seen them do a few times this season. They continued to attack. They kept Montreal on their heels. They were still careful and responsible defensively. But there's an old cliche, the best defense is a good offense. And I thought the third period was very strong for the LA Kings. A 2-0 lead going into the third. They didn't sit on the lead. They kept attacking and kept the puck for the most part in the Montreal and didn't give the Canadiens a chance to get back into the game. Still played good defense. And I love how the Kings kept their foot on the gas in the third period. Individually, other than the 3 stars that we already talked about, I did want to mention Jaret Anderson-Dolan had a great steal and pass to Trevor Moore for the primary assist on the third goal of the game. That was a great play by Jaret Anderson-Dolan, his best play in his brief time with the LA Kings this season. Again, he's on the fourth line, so even without Blake Lizotte, that fourth line continues to produce with Trevor Lewis getting the goal there. But Jaret Anderson-Dolan also played a little on the penalty kill as well with Blake Lizotte being out. So good to see Jaret Anderson-Dolan. Good to see another fourth liner contributing to a victory. And also, I thought Alex Laferriere had another solid game, although he didn't get a point in this one. Had a couple opportunities, had one really early on, a great shot at getting a goal, but he was active and noticeable. And credit to all the guys on the blue line, really the whole team defensively. When you get a shutout, it's not just about the goalie, and Pheonix Copley will talk about that in a minute. But I thought all the guys on defense played a very solid game. And I still can't believe Jordan Spence hasn't gotten a goal yet. He's been very, very close. I'm going to say Jordan Spence gets his first goal of the season coming up here pretty soon, although the Kings aren't playing a lot of games coming up pretty soon. But I'm saying in the next 5 games, I'm going to predict Jordan Spence gets his first goal of the season. We'll see. Let us get into the night for goaltender Pheonix Copley. Again, not busy. Only had to make 1 save in the first period, but I don't care. Copley has been one of the few concerns that I think a lot of Kings fans have had this season. And for him to get a shutout, for him to win 2 games in a row is big. And it is interesting that he got the shutout in this game. I thought he actually played a better game against Arizona in the previous game because of the quality saves that he had to make and the more saves that he had to make. But again, good to see him get a shutout. That's got to be great for his confidence. It looks like he's back on track, at least after the last 2 games. The crazy thing about Copley is that for a season where I think he definitely has struggled early on, the Kings have still recorded a point in all 6 of his starts. The team is 4-0-2 in games that Pheonix Copley has started this year. Now, his season numbers still aren't great, even despite the last two games. 304 goals against average, 868 save percentage, but certainly getting better as the season goes along. He's posted back-to-back wins, and he's allowed a total of 1 goal in his last 2 starts. So, again, one of the things we were concerned about, especially with Cam Talbot playing the number of games it looks like he's going to play, he needs to have his rest when those moments come and are available on the schedule. And Pheonix Copley needs to keep things going. And so far, so good in the last 2 starts for Pheonix Copley with the LA, because I did want to mention a quote from Pheonix Copley after the win over Montreal. Our friend Zach Dooley, the LA Kings insider, had a chance to chat with him, and the Kings shared that audio with all the media folks like myself. And Pheonix was asked about getting the shutout, and he said, quote, "I just want to keep getting better and better, regardless of what's going on in front of me. I just want to stick to my game and keep building my game. But more importantly is getting wins and keeping it going as a team. That's the most important thing," end quote. So Pheonix Copley, a guy who's very easy to like, certainly a team first guy. His story was well chronicled last season, kind of coming out of nowhere and having the best season of his career and helping the Kings salvage their season, get in the playoffs. And they didn't go as far as they would have liked. And Pheonix Copley didn't get a chance to play, but he was I voted him as the team's MVP for what it was worth. But a great season for Pheonix Copley last year. And again, struggling out of the gate. But one of the things we all wanted to see was him getting better as the season goes along. There's been the talk about things he's done in practice, working with Mike Buckley, the goaltender coach. And we've seen those things, obviously, so far in the last 2 starts for Pheonix Copley. But again, crazy. I didn't even realize it, that the team is 4-0-2 in the 6 starts he's had this year. But again, he needs to play better, and he has played better in the last 2 games. So that is great to see. Was there anything we didn't like? And not much in the game against Montreal. I did want to make a comment on Kevin Fiala. We have talked about his bad penalties in the past, and he also tries to make some passes on occasion that have no business being attempted. And it caught my eye against Montreal a few times. Some of those passes were through the middle where it was wishful thinking. Like, it's like, how does he think he's going to get that pass through? The passes are intercepted, and usually those kind of passes can go the other way and result in odd man rushes. But he's so darn talented that even when he does have those bad penalties, or when he does make those kind of wishful passes, it seems like it never hurts the Kings. I can't remember a bad pass he had where the other team went and scored. I can't remember, honestly, a bad penalty he had where the Kings didn't kill it off. So I guess on the one hand, it's going to be hard to convince him stop doing that when it doesn't seem to ever hurt the Kings. And look, there are many times when he will make or take a chance when it comes to some of those passes, and they can be very effective. So with Kevin Fiala, you take the good with the bad. Most of the time it is good, but he does occasionally make you, I'm guessing Todd McClellan must as well on occasion roll his eyes a bit with some of the things that Kevin Fiala does. But again, he is a very, very talented player. He does a lot more good things than bad things, but I just noticed it a few times against Montreal specifically. Some of the passes he was trying to make, I'm like, man, no, it's not going to work. What are you doing? But that said, he also had some great passes. Like there was a backdoor pass on a power play to Quentin Byfield, where Byfield unfortunately didn't get to it on a tap in. Kevin Fiala put some passes with some mustard on them. You got to be ready for it, or else you might whiff like Q did on that one. But it was a great pass, and could have had an easy goal on that one. But he's a guy that if you're on the ice with him, you better have your stick on the ice. You better be ready for it to come to you at any time. So an observation on Kevin Fiala. Coming up next, we're going to look at where the Kings are in the standings. Also give you an Ontario Reign report. The Kings AHL affiliate playing some pretty good hockey as well. We'll get into that more coming up next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Adrian Kempe scores a hat trick and the LA Kings win the Stanley Cup. That sounds good, right? Well, you know what else sounds good? You winning 100 times your money by playing daily fantasy hockey on the Sleeper app as the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our top choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you can pick more or less based on goals, assists, points, saves, and more. And Sleeper offers you 100 times payouts, 100 times. And although we all love the NHL, it's not just about hockey. You've got the NFL going on, college football, and the NBA as well. Now is a great time to get in on all the amazing sports action. Make the right picks, and you could win big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availabilities. The LA Kings face the Washington Capitals Wednesday night, 7:30 Pacific time. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of your LA Kings on Sirius XM with the SXM app. Search LA Kings. I usually do that one pretty well. All right, let's take a look at the Pacific divisions as we start a new week. And the Vegas Golden Knights are still the top team in the Pacific. Overall, a record of 14-5-2 for 30 points. Most of the Western Conference this past week, though, they were 1-1. An overtime win over Dallas and a 2-0 shutout at the hands of Arizona. Your LA Kings are now in second place in the Pacific Division, moving up one spot, and they are 1 point behind Vegas for the division lead. 13-3-3 for your Kings, 3-0 this past week with wins over Arizona, Anaheim, and Montreal. Vancouver also 29 points, like the Kings, but the Canucks have played 3 more games than LA. Vancouver at 14-7-1. They were 2-2 this past week. They had wins over San Jose and Seattle, losses to Colorado and San Jose. And again, the Kings have a better winning percentage than Vancouver, playing the fewer games and having the same number of points. That's why they have the tiebreaker with them, even though both teams have 29 points. And you may have seen this on the internet a bit, but your LA Kings have the best winning percentage of any team in the Western Conference and the third best winning percentage in the entire NHL. The Kings' winning percentage is .763. Vegas is at .714. As far as Western Conference teams, the only teams better in winning percentage in the NHL than the LA Kings, the New York Rangers at .816, and the Boston Bruins at .775. But again, the LA Kings at .763 winning percentage, third best in the entire NHL, best in the Western Conference. Elsewhere in the Pacific, Seattle right now is in fourth place. They are the last wildcard team right now in the West with a record of 8-9-5 for 21 points. They went 1-1-1 this past week. Overtime loss to Calgary, beat San Jose, and lost to Vancouver. Calgary is at 8-10-3 for 19 points. They're in fifth place. They went 2-2 this week. They beat Seattle and Dallas, lost to Nashville and Colorado. Anaheim starting to skid a bit, 9-12 for 18 points. They went 0-3 this past week, lost to Montreal, LA, and Edmonton. The Oilers are in seventh place still, despite their coaching change. 7-12-1 on the season for 15 points. They went 2-2 this week, lost to Florida and Carolina, beat Washington and Anaheim. And San Jose bringing up the rear, not only in the Pacific, but in the entire NHL. 4-15-2 are the Sharks for 10 points. 1-2-1 over the past week. They beat Vancouver, lost in a shootout to Montreal, lost to Vancouver and Seattle. The Kings have never won a division title in their history. That might be shocking to some people. You longtime Kings fans know that. They've never won a division title in their history, which is insane. But this year might be a good time to do it, considering the top 3 teams so far in the Western Conference are all in the Pacific Division. And with the playoff format, as you know, the number 2 seed and the number 3 seed in the division will play each other. And right now, that would be 2 of the top 3 teams in the entire Western Conference. So there's going to be a very good team that is going to lose in the first round of the playoffs. The Kings have been in that situation the last 2 years. So it would be, I'd be okay with the Kings not being in that situation this year. If the Kings are able to win a division title, they would face a wild card team in the first round. So just throwing it out there at the moment. We'll see. A lot of people are not sure if Vancouver's for real at this point or not. We shall see. But again, the Kings right now in second place in the Pacific Division. Did want to give you an Ontario rain report, and we do want to start with a health update as defenseman Tobias Bjornfoot was injured in a game last Tuesday, took a hard hit into the boards, was injured, taken off the ice on a stretcher, went to the hospital. The good news is that he's been released from the hospital. He's doing very well. Most of it was precautionary. He was shaken up on the play for sure. But Tobias Bjornfoot right now is on injured reserve. Going to be out for a little while, even though it was a scary situation. Under the circumstances, looks like it is about as good as could be. He's going to miss a little bit of time, but not an extended period of time, not multiple weeks. But they are going to let him take his time, heal up, kind of a head injury type situation. They're not going to give you specific details, but I think it's fair to say probably a concussion of some sort. But every report we have is that Tobias Bjornfoot is doing well and maybe miss a week or so, but should be back on the ice in the relative near future, which is a very good thing. Speaking of a very good thing, the Ontario Reign tearing it up over the past week, going 3-0. That game that Bjornfoot was hurt in, they crushed Coachella Valley 6-0. David Rittich, 24 saves in the shutout. Samuel Fagimo, 2 goals. Francesco Pinelli, Martin Chromiak, Tyler Madden, and Samuel Helenius also had goals as well. Then on Friday, the Reign shut out the San Jose Barracuda 3-0. David Rittich again in net, 2 straight shutouts there. He turned aside all 32 shots he saw. Samuel Fagimo and Alex Turcotte each had a goal and an assist, and TJ Tynan had a goal as well. And on Sunday, the Reign again beat the San Jose Barracuda, this time by a score of 4-2. Eric Portillo made 42 saves in the win. Samuel Fagimo, 2 more goals, and Akil Thomas and Brian Clark also scoring, each with a goal and an assist, and TJ Tynan had 2 helpers as well. All those wins, by the way, for the Reign on the road. So just like the Kings, the Reign getting it done away from home. They're 7-2 on the road this season. Overall for the Ontario Reign, 11-4-1 on the season. And right now they're in second place in the Pacific Division. So it's been a great early season for the Ontario Reign, which is awesome to see. They've got 3 games coming up this week: Tuesday at home against Tucson, Friday at home against Coachella Valley, and then Saturday at Coachella Valley. So good to see, again, the Reign and the Kings having good seasons so far. And, who knows? The Kings have been really healthy so far this year. Obviously, Blake Lizotte is out, Victor Arvidsson on long-term injured reserve, but overall the Kings have been pretty healthy. Hopefully that stays the case. But if it doesn't, if we need some reinforcements from Ontario, some of the guys there are playing really well. It's great to see. And Samuel Fagimo has been on fire since the Kings were able to reclaim him off of waivers from Nashville. All right, for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, the schedule for this week is still in progress. We're going to have a special interview for you, but we're working on finalizing that. Obviously, the Kings play only 1 game this week. That's on Wednesday, so our Thursday show will be a big recap of that game. Wednesday show will have a bit of a preview of the game against the Capitals. Friday, of course, will be our fan feedback show. So that's a little bit of the schedule coming up this week here on Locked On LA Kings. If you want to send an email on anything going on with the Kings, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And if you're watching on YouTube, just leave your comments below. All your comments are welcome. We would love you to stay interactive with the show by following us on social media. We're on X, Twitter, and Instagram at Locked On LA Kings. I am Eddie Garcia. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We will talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Kings, go.